based on at the clinic, it's a higher number than that are vaccinated at the schools. But I don't expect that it's probably much higher than maybe 30% of the kids that would qualify at best. I think that may be optimistic even.
Dottie, did you have a question?
Yeah, just speak into it.
Okay.
Just pull it closer to you.
Okay, well, thanks. I was gonna ask, I know that there probably hasn't been as large of a turnout, but I remember at the beginning of the year when we all had to pick up like our school books because we were all virtual, there was a lot of students who showed up at West to pick up our materials. And I was wondering, did the school district do like the parent phone call thing? Like where you call the parents, you did the automated?
Yeah.
We've received a call.
Yeah, we've pushed it out in every way we could.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think we can look at it now and say maybe we didn't do enough. But the time frame again on this has been a little bit short, from the time they said we can do it and then we went after it. I think we don't stop though. I mean, I think we keep working with the health department. There is talk now of actually vaccinations. They said they thought it could be approved as early as this week or maybe early next week, that we could go down to, I believe it was 10-year-olds?
12.
12. Uh-huh. So that's again a great opportunity because the more of those kids we can get vaccinated before we start school in the fall, the better school year we are bound to have. So we'll keep pushing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we could do like a press conference about that. That might, open a door for a lot of families to know about it.
Yeah, one of the things I think that's a great idea. One of the things we talked about with the folks at the U and the NIH grant was to have what we would call health navigators, and I put them in touch with the university neighborhood partners. And so what we'd like to do is try to find folks in the neighborhood that could actually be a health navigator that could go to someone's house and say, let me walk you through this. Because if you've never done it, and maybe if you have a language barrier, it can be rather intimidating. So what we want to do is say, rather than trying to get everybody at once, let's just start going one at a time and just start getting people vaccinated.
Okay.
Yes.
Ollie?
The nonprofit I have does this like thing every year. It's called the Shipetote graduation, and we give like the stoles at West.
Mm-hmm.
And the city asked us, they're like, oh, can we bring a one of the mobile vaccine clinics to your thing? And I was like, oh, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. But I think, what about our graduation? Can we have a clinic there at the Huntsman Center for people that are interested? Like, we're going to have loads of families there. Why don't we do that also, in addition to like what we're doing as a nonprofit? But yeah, people trust us as a local community. Like you're saying, the health navigators is a good idea too. But people will be at the Huntsman Center, so I think that could be a good place to capture them, especially since the age group is small and younger siblings will be there. And then just working with other community groups during the summer, because the summer, I don't know, I just feel like the schools can be still hubs because students will still go to the schools for lunch.
Right.
And so like once they see that, and then we kind of tell the families that are going there. That's because during the summer I would always go to the schools to get lunch, and
Sure.
and I would get information if there's programming in the summer at that school, and so that they can tell them like, oh yeah, next week come when you get food, like we're gonna have a vaccine. And then there's also like the Partners in the Park with UNP that happens.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of opportunities. I think timing is a problem. Communication could have been a problem. I think it was just more timing. I think where people are still, everything's moving so fast, people don't even know what's happening. So,
Yeah.
But if people kind of see others, and the health navigators, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's true. The other piece is I think that while it's great that positivity rates have gone down and it feels like things are kind of easing up, I think it creates the impression that this is over. And right now is the time when we could really benefit by getting more people vaccinated. So we'll explore every avenue possible to do that.
If we have student body officers or people like that at the schools that are over 18, could they go on announcements and talk about how they got the vaccine and encourage people to do it?
We'll have to figure out how to get another clinic set up at the schools, because we set it up with one clinic per school to start with. But yeah.
But if we have that, and we haven't done it at all the schools yet, but if we had some students talking about, and I don't know, I assume that all the schools have TV programs, but we could also have,
Oh yeah.
some of those kids, I think they probably need to be over 18, but if they were over 18 and could actually show them getting the shot, I don't know if we do a second set.
I think if we promoted it enough and we thought we could get enough people. I mean, the health department is they're willing to do almost anything we can come up with, and that they're producing ideas of their own to try to get this moving. So absolutely, yeah.
Are the schools doing like a daily announcement of the availability?
I don't know what the details are of each school, but I mean, I know we've sent out materials, we've had things translated that we've sent out, even shared back with the health department. I mean, we're doing everything. We're pushing it out as much as we can. But we also knew going into this it's going to be a little bit difficult because you have to get a permission slip, and so that's another step that can be really difficult because that means we have to have something that's going to go home and going to come back, and another barrier. But we'll keep working at it.
Yeah. So like just in the intercom when they do good morning and all of that in the morning. So
yeah.
We'll
talk with all the administrators and let them know. I mean, we need to still push on this, and we still need to maintain all of our safety protocols.
Fantastic.
I'm going to ask. Was there anything else? Or go ahead, Dottie.
I have one other thing. I know you said that the form requires parental consent. So when you fill out the form, if a student is filling out the form on the online form, do you have to also put in like your parents' names, etc.?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that form myself.
Because I was going to say that I know that we had to take a class survey for I think the school climate survey, and we had set aside about 20 minutes of class time to do that, and that led to a really high turnout of students filling it out. So I think if we could possibly set aside class time, fill out the form, and then if that form sends an email confirmation to the student's parents, then you've kind of established a line of communication.
Yep.
That might help. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, I'm going to ask Dr. Hall to come up and give a little update on summer school. First, I should say summer programming. There's a variety of things.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody in person.
Quiet.
I was asked, am I in the right place for the mic? I was asked to just give a little synopsis of everything that's happening this year for summer school. It's really quite exciting. This year we did have a new structure that we put into place. And so we are going to be doing our summer school Monday through Friday, 5 days a week from 8:30 to 4:30. And we are doing this because one of the things that we've heard is that it's difficult for parents when we had a summer school program that ended at 2:30 and only went 4 days a year. And since this year it's so critical that did I say year? I meant week. Thank you, Alan.
That would be a problem.
That would be a problem.
We know what you meant.
Thank you. All right, 4 days a week. And we are doing it that way because we really want to target those students that have demonstrated some unfinished learning from either the early dismissal last spring or this year through remote. And we wanted to make that as possible and as accessible for them as possible. And our principals and teachers have been doing an amazing job of reaching out to those families with students that would benefit from being in summer school and inviting them to participate. So that has been going very, very well. To ensure that we had appropriate staffing across the board, we've consolidated our programs into 6 hubs. Generally, we have only done a community ed program in our West Side Title I schools. This year we're also doing one on the East Side because unfinished learning and support is needed for every school and every student in the district. So we have 6 hubs. One is based at Escalante, one is based at Edison, one is based at Uinta, one is based at Washington, one at Liberty, and one at Meadowlark. And so the schools have grouped together around those hubs, and the administrative teams and community ed are working together to ensure that they have the staff and the personnel in place to deliver a high-quality program. The morning of that program is going to be a 3-hour instructional block, 8:30 to 11:30, taught by a highly effective teacher with a paraprofessional to support in the classroom. We are hoping to have approximately 1 class at every grade, but we're willing to flex if we have higher enrollment in certain grades. We do have one pod, the Edison pod, that has already doubled down on that, and they are offering 2 grades at every level because their enrollment dictated that. So I'm appreciative of the work that those schools are all doing. The schools will also be supported by a summer intern. This is a person that will either be a teacher who either has their administrative license or will finish their administrative license by the end of this next coming year. And Rebecca Pittum, our interim director, executive director of school leadership and performance, is handling all of that. So that's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to grow some of our own people into administrative positions. So we're excited about that. They will also have a community ed coordinator and group leaders, and they will help and they come to us through community ed. So I'd like to thank James Yapius and Liz Gonzalez for all of their work on summer school. It's been huge. Their teams have been really working hard to get all of the people that they need to do everything in the afternoon, which will include science activities. We're going to provide a science camp for 1 week in the afternoons for every one of the hubs. We'll also have Friday activities that they'll do that will help them reintegrate into being in a group and being in buildings and being around with kids. The schools have also asked, each hub has a counselor who will be working during summer school to provide SEL some social and emotional learning opportunities around things like friendship, anxiety, stress, breathing, meditating, all of those things that will help them, again, deal with that step back in. We will also be running 8 early childhood kindergarten preparation sites. And so those are at all of the sites that we just mentioned, plus Benyon and Whittier. I believe it's Whittier. And we'll have all of our rising kindergartners being served in those programs, and that will be fantastic because they'll have a lot of those activities that will really help them be ready to integrate into kindergarten in a big building when they come back in the fall. We are going to build an evaluation plan around this. We want to make sure that we're being effective with all of this. We're going to be using our Acadience data from end of year to beginning of year and see the difference. We know that we also sometimes have some summer slides, so we really want to make sure that we're using that assessment to tell us where students are with their reading. We've arranged for our Eureka program, a program in that to give us a pre-test to see where they are in terms of readiness for their subsequent grade. And then at the beginning of the year, they will retake that test to see where they are in terms of being ready for that grade. We'll also look at attendance, and we're talking about some ways of evaluating social and emotional learning. So right now, these programs are open for enrollment through invitation. The schools are still working through the lists of people that they want to have attend, that they're specifically targeting. And then on May 10th, we will open that to the general public for anybody else to register for any of those available seats. In the middle schools and the high schools, each program is beautifully and individually designed to meet the needs and the strengths of the school. So all of the middle schools are preparing plans to help bring their students in and prepare them for 7th grade or prepare them for 8th grade, and then provide also, sorry, it's the mask. I don't want to sound like I'm Darth Vader.
It is May the 4th.
Okay, that is true.
I don't want to interrupt you, but since we're interrupted, I've received feedback that our sound is hard to hear on the live stream. So I'm just encouraging everybody to speak directly into the microphone.
Okay. But their focus at the middle schools will be literacy, math, and science, and also opportunities for enrichment, things like study skills, getting ready to come into middle school, some art, science, music, different things like that, so that students have a variety of opportunities to come to their school and to be with people. We'll also have some counselors on hand over the summer for them in various ways. At high school, we have 2 major ways that things are happening. That's live and not live. Each of the comprehensive high schools is offering a live summer school with teachers who will be offering either credit replacement or grade replacement or credit recovery. And so students can go and have a live experience in the morning if that's what they would like, and they've got that sectioned out differently to meet the needs of their students. We also have online options. We have our Salt Lake City School District Credit Recovery Program, which we have almost every one of the core classes covered and will have by the time school is out. We have grade replacement available through the Utah Students Connect Consortium. And then Mr. Joshua Bell from Horizonte has arranged for us to have access through the summer for Northridge packets for students that would like to pursue a paper-based option. And we'll be setting up stations at each of the high schools so that we can make sure that students have access to those without having to drive to Ogden or even to go to Horizonte. Also, to support all of our students who are doing online or packet options, we're going to have tutors, especially in math, science, and writing, available throughout the day at different places in the community so that students can access them on a schedule. That is our plan for the summer school. What questions can I answer?
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Christy?
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. I know you said that it was Monday through Friday. Is that just the elementary or is that K through 12?
I'm sorry, that's just the elementary.
And then what are the days for middle and for high? Do you know?
They are generally Monday through Thursday.
Monday
So,
through
yeah.
Thursday. And do you know the times?
They start at either 8 or 8:30, and then depending on the program, and either between 11:30 and 2:30.
So they would go as long as either 11:30 or till 2:30.
11:30 or 12:30 or 1:30 or 2:30.
Okay, all right.
They're all just a little bit different.
They're all just a little bit, okay. So I can see where you said that the middle school was focused in on the cores. Is it the same thing with the high schools, or is it just more about, you said, well, credit recovery and grade replacement?
Yes, and I would say also that their focus is on our ELA classes, our math classes, science and social studies
Okay.
as the primary credit-bearing classes that students want. But there are also opportunities for them to do, again, depending on the school, music or fine arts or PE. We're just trying to offer whatever it is that the students need at those schools.
I think that's a great idea, because I know one of the things that you mentioned the last time we talked about this is the concern of how to get kids there. So offering other classes besides just the core, would definitely might be a draw, for them. Is it going to be completely, if our students are going to participate in the summer schools, whether, K through 12, are we providing any transportation at all?
Yes, all of the elementary schools will have busing from their home school to the hub school or the pod school. We don't want to confuse it with the hubs.
Okay.
So we're the pod school. So they'll all have busing there and back. So picking them up sometime around 8 and dropping them off sometime between 4:30 and 5. And then the high schools are running their general buses that they use. Middle schools, if they have a bus during the year, will run a bus.
And they'll also run a bus.
Yes.
And how are we going to communicate that to parents?
That has been going out through the schools. So schools have been giving all of that information out to parents as they're designing their programs.
Is it also on Power School? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just thinking that, like, one of the things that Dottie talked to us about was, when kids are accessing Canvas or at the school site, the website, that having all that information right on the front page, at each school site or at the district site, or if kids are logging in somewhere, to have some sort of information to talk about summer school, along with what you're already doing with sending out. Just thinking of how we can make sure we've got all those
and
tentacles.
I know that most of them do have it up on their website. I know it for sure. I accessed Highlands on the website the other day.
Okay.
So they're posting it that way, and they could certainly do it through an announcement in Canvas as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions?
My question is, all of this is coming from the CARES funds pretty much, right?
Pretty much. There are some other funds that we're using, of course, to support it, but a large percentage of it is the CARES fund. We have had limited opportunities for revenue-bearing programs over the last 15 months, and so we kind of need to give this that kickstart to make sure that we're able to do it.
Cool.
And do you anticipate a lot of desire or need for kids that are not recommended to be in the program?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I mean,
I guess I'm wondering what happens if we have a huge group of students that want to do these programs but can't.
we do generally have more demand for our summer school programs than we have space. But if we know, for instance, that we have students who are committed to come, we're trying to deal with that at the school level right now to put things in. So as I've talked with principals in the pods, we've said things like, if you have already got a class of fifth graders committed and you have 10 more that you're targeting, add another fifth grade teacher so that we have some space when it opens on May 10th. Mm-hmm. We don't have unlimited capacity. We never do. We have to worry about staffing. Our group leaders have to be on a 1-to-20 ratio in the afternoon. Right. So, but we are going to do as much as we can to make sure that we have those spots.
Could we get numbers, Superintendent and Dr. Hall, about how full the programs are, how many people wanted to be served that maybe didn't get to be served, just so we know?
So each of the programs right now is set up at the elementaries to serve 120 students, except for the Edison pod, which is 240. Community Ed does not carry a wait list, so we really wouldn't be able to see how many students weren't served at that point, because we can't carry a wait list in that registration process, but we can give you the final registration numbers when we start the program.
And maybe a sense of how much need there went unmet.
I don't know if we would be able to answer that question.
Okay.
We would be able to have served all of the students that we've targeted, but we wouldn't have a way to know if there were people who went to the website and found the program full.
Right. So I guess I would like to have a way to get that, to measure that information. Like how many people are interested in summer services that aren't getting those summer services. I think that would be valuable for us to know.
Well, yeah, let us think about how to get that information.
Okay.
I mean, maybe that would be a survey or something, but I think it would be very interesting information to have. I mean, we can tell you if things fill, and if it's full to the
right.
brim, then it may tell you that there's some extra,
No,
but it doesn't
but
get.
we don't know if it's two
Exa-
times or it's another 3 students.
Exactly,
So-
exactly. Let us think about that, and
Yeah, and Community Ed has had some issues around that in the past, so they were quite firm with me in saying there will not be a wait list. So I know that there are reasons behind that.
Right. I mean, I understand that wait lists are difficult to maintain, and also people get anxious and things like that. But at the same time, it would be good to know, and it's good for us to have options if, so we have a fair way of filling possible spaces. Without a wait list, it's very difficult, I think, to make that a fair and equitable process. So, I mean, that's been an issue that we've seen in aftercare for a long time, right? I mean, that's been a recurring issue. So just to go backwards, I'd really like to see the numbers on the shot clinics too, if we could.
I'm sorry, on the.
Just getting a report on the shot clinic. Sorry, I'm going back to our last topic, but I didn't ask you then, and it occurred to me that I'd like to see those numbers, if that's okay. When you have them, it's not urgent. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty rough at this point.
That's fine. Whenever you can either give them to us rough or whenever you have them smooth. So thank you. That was very interesting, and I appreciate the hard work you're doing. I just think that I'd like it to be available to people who are not recommended for whatever reason.
And we will make sure that there are still seats in every pod when that opens.
That's great.
Other questions, Mohammed?
First of all, thank you. This looks, I love your commitment to making sure, our students are getting prepared and catching up in their schooling. Really, really appreciate that. And if I were little Ion, I would go into your brain and just see how you're thinking about everything. It is so amazing.
It would be a very frightening place.
And so just to reiterate here, just to verify something, so the school administrators will identify the population that are in need of this program before it opens into a general public, and then on May 10th, then it'll open to general public for enrollment. Fantastic. Thank you.
And the teachers are supporting that identification as well. And I really just have to say that whatever little work I have done on this, our administrators and teachers have done a million times more. They have really worked to create a great program, find teachers to make sure it's a great experience, and to identify and reach out to those families.
That is fantastic. That is a sign of a good leadership. Is crediting others for it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Sorry. Sorry, Dr. Holly was going to ask you, how are we handling our special ed students, our kids with disabilities?
Sure. Dr. Halverson and I have talked about them as we've gone through this process. If they are in summer school, if we have students in special ed with summer school, then we'll arrange to have services that they will need provided. She has asked her families just to treat summer school as it was regular school. So they're welcome, and then we'll figure out where they are and follow them along.
Do you think that there's a possibility that there may be a critical mass, that we might have to have a different hub?
I don't know. I mean, certainly if we have that kind of
That could be a
enrollment,
possibility.
we could look at something like that. I know that she very often, and I don't mean to speak for Dr. Halverson, but the idea of having them in a general ed setting where
Right.
that's appropriate is always her first choice.
First choice.
For a least
Yes.
restrictive environment. She will also be, and again, I'm speaking for her on her program, but she will also be having individual one-on-one and small group like we did last summer, where that is more appropriate for the family or the student.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Dr. Hall, really appreciate the work on this and look forward to your updates on how this is going and the evaluation process. Thank you. All right, now we'll move to our discussion agenda. And the first item is late start implementation. And as a reminder, items on the discussion agenda are for thoughtful and productive discussion. And items on the discussion agenda may be moved to the action or they may not. And we will follow our board guidelines that we adopted in our last meeting, meaning everybody will have an opportunity to speak once before anybody speaks twice. We'll follow the 3-minute guideline, 2 minutes the first time around and once the second.
So-
Halali is our timekeeper.
Halfway this, if you're not looking at me, because sometimes you don't, especially now that we don't have cameras, I will say halfway, just so you know this, and then your time's up. And if you're not seeing, I will say your time's up.
All right. Thank you, board members. And now we'll move into the discussion agenda and superintendent.
Okay, I put 5 slides together to kind of use as a guide as we roll through this. But as we started to look at the actual implementation of the late start, we found a couple of things that we probably should have found before, but we didn't. We found them now. And so, I apologize if the process is a little clunky, but we are where we are today. So if you can go to the first slide, Alan. This is policy I-5 requires 1,000 instructional hours, and the motion that was approved at the last meeting does not meet this minimum. And if you can just go to the next slide, this is the exact motion that was approved by the board. So implement the late start schedule as presented. Now I underlined that because I think we're going to have to come back and have some discussion around that with schools starting at either 8 or 8:45. And early out for high schools on Friday being at 1:55. Again, I underlined that so we can come back and have some conversation about that and the rest of the motion as it was approved. So the as presented part, Alan, if you can go to the next slide. This was as presented, okay, and I think you've all seen this, and I think I did mail this out to you. And then, so this leaves us with, we're short on hours because we didn't account for passing time in that initial run. So if you can just go to the next slide, Alan, this is I think this is the last one. This is where we are at this point, and we would propose that we have the 3 traditional high schools start at 8:45. Other schools would start at 8 or 8:45. And there would be adjustments that could be possible through the shared governance process in collaboration with school leadership. And if we make this change, and I left it quite open because one of the things that was discussed last time was the ability to have some flexibility as needed by schools. And so by backing it up to this point, I think it does that. If we change to the 8:45 start time and take out the early Friday release from high schools, so we make all high school days equal length Monday through Friday, that we would have a 3:15 release time. So it's actually 15 minutes later than before. If we were to keep the early release Friday, that's going to push the Monday through Thursday release time all the way to 3:38. So that one starts to get pretty late. So this is what I would recommend, and there are some things that I've intentionally left off of this that I think are things that we can manage. I know one of the things that's come up is PLCs and collaboration time, but it's very clear in the written agreement in the section 15.4.1.1, it says that schools will accommodate for PLCs and collaboration time, and so that's still there. And I personally think, as a, a recent school administrator myself, I would appreciate the flexibility of finding the time at my school that works best for that. And so if high schools are starting at 8:45, I think it's a real possibility that you can do those kinds of things in the morning. I think that kind of latitude is actually appreciated by the schools. I mean, I know sometimes we like to be told what to do, then we don't have to figure it out and go through the process, but I think going through the process and figuring it out actually gets us to a good place. So this is my recommendation, is that we would we would update that motion to be this. And I again, very open, but we'll do the work. We'll do it to the best of our ability, and we'll start our traditional high schools at 8:45. The other schools already started at least 8:30 or later. And I feel like I'm okay with having, again, some latitude on that. But I think it achieves our purpose of getting to the late start for high school kids. That's all I have. I don't think there's another slide, is there, Ellen? Okay. Then I'm certainly open to questions.
Okay, discussion.
And I've got the network directors here too, in case we need to bring them in.
Okay. Thank you. Hawali?
Yeah, thank you for this. I got emails about two main concerns. One, that the high schools end before kind of like the elementaries and middle schools, so that the older siblings can pick up their younger siblings. I don't know if I missed something. Does that happen in this recommendation?
Well, I think it depends on when the younger siblings get out. Becky, do you have do you know what the release times would be for the elementary schools?
Depending on whether they started.
Well, what if one started at 8?
They start at 8. The regular ending time is 2, correct?
2:30, somewhere on.
2:30.
8:45, and then it would be Christmas.
2:30. So if it was an early start school, that would be difficult. If it was a later start school, it would probably work more easily. It's a good question.
Right, and so that was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was, I was getting emails that, I don't know if it was the past one or not, this one, actually I didn't see it there. What we voted last time wouldn't go to the 1,000 hours, right? That's required. But now, I was getting emails that it would go over 1,000 hours, and some teachers were saying that they wouldn't get paid during those extra hours.
Well, we've never been able to land it exactly on 1,000 hours. That gets really tricky, but it's very, very close to 1,000 hours. I don't know, Becky, do you know or do any of you know what the total is? It's a little over.
They said, it says on here, I don't know if this is correct, it's 1,000 and then 22.
That could be correct, yeah.
And 24, and we've never landed had every elementary school, for example, land exactly on 1,000.
But
for example,
Ms. Pittum, can I ask you three to come to the table so that we can get a microphone on you?
I would say this while she's working her way up is, even with this change and going back to this 8:45, which we're talking about, and the 1,000 hours roughly, is we're not asking people to work more. So we are, compared to what we asked with that original motion from last week, but that original motion from last week was under our 1,000 instructional hours. So we're back to what we were at before, and it did vary quite a bit from school to school on how many instructional hours there were. But this is close to 1,000. So it's not asking for more teacher time. It's comparable to what it was last year.
Yeah, since one of their concerns I see in the emails that they don't get paid after it's 1,000 hours. Is that true or not?
Well, that's a different conversation, I think. I mean, teachers get paid for 1,440 hours. So, I mean, that's through the Cactus system. Now,
Their salary, not hourly.
yeah, but they're salaried, so, right.
Okay, so I'm just kind of bringing it more to the
Yeah.
public,
No,
because
good.
so
Yeah,
people
great.
can know. And then just so that's good to know, because I was thinking what you're saying.
Mhm.
And then there's this is the high school, and so the elementary and the middle school pretty much are the same, right? We're not really touching that.
There had to be some small adjustments to those too, and I'll let the network directors give you the details of that.
At the elementary level, it would end up being about 1,024 hours of instructional time, not of teacher day time, of instructional hours.
So that's what it was for elementary, Chris.
And
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The last time that I ran the numbers with middle school was 1,003, so we're close.
Excuse me, high school hours would be about 1,009 hours with the 8:45 start time and getting out at 3:15, 5 days a week, the equal time across. That does not count. That's just instructional time. That does not count lunch time as part of that or passing time as part of that, just instructional time for students. Actual teaching time for students is less than that because of their planning period, but that's part of the bigger teacher day that Becky alluded to.
Can I add just one piece to that? There is the state did grant a waiver next year to the 990 hours just for 1 year, but I'm not in any way recommending that. I think we need the instructional hours, and I think it was more oriented towards some of the school districts and maybe some of the rural districts that were trying to think about how they were going to manage this next year as well.
Okay.
And board policy also states the 1,000 hours. That's a minimum, not a maximum. That's in board policy as well for instructional time for students.
Okay. And then the other ones were so the elementary schools were not really, as you said, there's only some adjustments, but not major ones. So, but one of the things that we voted on was the elementary schools get out Friday early, right? That was like so one of the schools in my precinct, Newman, hasn't done that for years, and they don't like that. So based on here the adjustments, they can
I think it'll allow us more latitude to meet those needs of individual schools. Yeah,
so
schools.
Can,
yes.
So that through that process they can do it.
Cool. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to learn see that, and then and then of course I like this little thing adjustment for the high schools because, as you know, Wes has some cool ideas.
I do.
And I think this would allow them to pilot or try their cool ideas.
I think it's really important, though, that we make sure that they follow their shared governance process at the school and then work through school leadership, because at some point the transportation is going to make some things difficult to do, but we want to do as much as we can to meet the needs of individual schools.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. So that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joelle. Christy?
Thanks so much, Superintendent. I appreciate the information that you've put up there for us tonight, and to school support for the conversations that you've had with us this past week. I agree with you. It's unfortunate, right, that we're in this position. We thought we had kind of made a decision about late start. I don't believe that any of us still don't think that late start is important. I still am a total believer in that. Where I have some questions that Holly already touched on one. So the elementary half day stays in place if they choose. What about the middles?
Yes.
And the middle schools will still be able to have their half days?
Yes.
Okay. But the high schools not?
That's correct.
Okay. So with the high schools,
I'm sorry to interrupt board members, but the high schools would only be able to if their release time was about 3:38
right.
on those Monday through Thursday times.
Exactly. But I think that the superintendent said that, obviously if the SIC, wanted to come in and say, we have this piece in the PLCs in the written agreement, we think it's important. Where I have a little heartburn with that is that the board really did support the PLCs being embedded into the school day. That's why we had late start Mondays. And I have some heartburn putting that onto our administrators now, having to say either come in an hour before school, or stay after school, or have an extended day. So those are the three options, right? If they want to do the half day Friday, is they'd have to extend those days, the other 4 days, into 3:38, correct?
In order to have that time on Friday afternoon,
right.
Yes.
So I'm just going to jump, so for me that's a little bit of a heartburn because there's been so much work and professional development around PLCs.
Halfway.
Thank you, that I think it's important that we really think about how that impacts our teachers. It's just one more thing, especially in a learning loss year, for them to say, now you've got to figure out either before, after, or extend your day. And so I'm not really quite on board with that yet. I'm still thinking about it.
Can I speak to that for just a second? I think in terms of saying that we're asking them to extend their day, I don't think that's I don't think that entirely works that way, because if we don't do that and we build that into the Friday afternoons, we're extending their Monday through Thursday. So I would say that's a bit of a wash, right? If we did want to say, well, on Wednesdays, we're going to go from 3:15 to 4:15 for PLCs, we could certainly do that. But if we preserve it on the Friday afternoon, to me, that's a little bit of a wash.
Right, I totally understand that, but for me, as I'm thinking about a student, by the time they get out of school at 3:38, they get on a bus and get home, it's going to be way after 4 o'clock. It's going to be closer to 4:30.
Yeah.
And so to me, that doesn't work.
I agree.
I think that our families, didn't, and especially in our town halls, that was a huge concern.
Yeah.
So for me, just to wrap up I feel like that we have an opportunity as a board to say, we still believe in this, but let's put a hold on this and put it on the back burner, go back to committee and really think through this, to make sure that our families are ready for this and that we're ready as a district to do this. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy. Other comments?
I just have a question. What sort of adjustments, when you say adjustments may be possible? I mean, are the adjustments available for the start times?
I think, I think some of those, no, I don't think, no, I don't think that.
Okay.
But I think, like Joeli said, one of his schools, they never had an early out and they wanted to do something like that. I think that, and I think we've said it in the very first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that gets down to the kind of core issue around the late start.
That's an absolute.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I still think that it's such a big, significant mental health thing that it's worth going forward, even if it's bumpy. We've had a bumpy year. I mean, nothing's going to seem as bumpy as this. So.
Thanks, Catherine. Other comments, thoughts on this?
I can go ahead. So I'm in a similar boat. Like I think we need a little more thought into this. But I'm still in the position where I think we should aim to start in the fall, after the summer, and just would like to see a more detailed plan that kind of outlines and.
Can you give me some specifics of? I'd like to know, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I mean, we've talked about some of them, and I think Board Member Sweat and Joel brought up some really good ones. But I've also been receiving emails from students and from parents about the importance of the early afternoons for extracurricular activities or for work responsibilities and other responsibilities that they have with the family. I am quite nervous and I'll use Christy's word of heartburn relative to some of the requests about the PLC times when we can fit those in. If you followed me over my time on the board, PLCs are very, very important to me. I always ask about how they're going in schools when we get those reports from schools. So I do worry, with other things that we have going on in the district right now, the learning loss piece, that we really iron out what that might look like for those PLC times, to maintain those during the day as best we can, and also be mindful of some of the feedback that we got from parents during the town halls that we went through, previously when we were exploring this the first time. So I'm wondering if some of those could be brought back to the committee and brought back for some follow-up at one of our next board meetings, if not the 18th or the June 1st.
Yeah, they could. And I'll let the network directors weigh in on this if they want to as well. But in terms of the PLCs, I don't know that my personal feeling, and you're certainly free to disagree, is that I don't know that there's one right way to do that. I think like it says in the written agreement, we agree that we will do PLCs in collaboration, and I don't want to necessarily hamstring a school that has a way that they want to do it, because at the end of the day, I don't actually care about that. I actually care that we get the results that come out of that positive collaboration. And I know that if we collaborate, we do better. So I think it does. And I know that puts something on the administrators. But, that's part of what we sign up for. We're going to hold people accountable to do these pieces that we have agreed to, and we're going to hold people accountable to the results. And so, I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, Board Member Salazar, I'm not concerned at all about there being time for PLCs. What I'm concerned about is us not giving enough direction this spring so that schools can plan on when that PLC time will be in the fall. If teachers have sprung on them in September, hey, we're doing PLCs for the science department on Tuesdays after school, but some of those science teachers already have other commitments with family or whatever. I think that puts them in a real hard spot. I think if we can say this spring, hey, we have this. I've heard some principals say not having all the PLCs right at the same time can be beneficial too, because you can go to the math PLC on a Wednesday morning. You can go to the English language arts PLC on Thursday afternoon, and see some different times. I think it's just getting it out there ahead of time. We have, as Board Member Kennedy pointed out, we have salaried employees, and we have, even after their instruction of in class in front of teacher time, for the typical high school teacher with a planning period a day, for their planning time, for collaboration time, for time to meet with parents, for time to go to faculty meetings. We have over 600 hours a year, more than 600 hours a year to plan, collaborate, meet with parents, meet with students, having office hours, whatever those might look like, at faculty meeting time, professional learning time. Those are all parts of what principals need time to hash out with their teachers this spring, so that everybody goes into the fall with, if we give everybody a few months to get ready for whenever those times are, they'll be able to plan their lives around those pieces right there.
We do have a teacher day report as part of the written agreement too, and that includes schools getting specific about when they're doing their PLCs. There's all those, a bunch of things, PLCs, time with parents, faculty meetings, all that's everything.
And the numbers I gave you are for a typical high school teacher. I know it looks different at a middle school and at an elementary level. Those are a little bit different beasts, but high school, I feel very confident that those times can be determined.
One other key point that we have spoken a lot about is how in the past, with late start, being Mondays for late start for PLCs, we started at 7:45. And what you'd be doing now is you would have that same start time for teachers, 7:45
Or
for PLCs.
7:30
Or
probably,
7:30
so they could get to
for
class
PLCs, so it wouldn't be that big of a stretch from what they're used to. And you're only asking that 1 day a week. We're only asking that they meet 1 day a week for PLCs. So it's not a huge stretch from what they've already been doing. A stretch, but not a huge stretch. And like we said, we want to make sure we have a clear distinction between instructional time and teacher day.
It's only a stretch if those teachers are teenagers.
Thanks, Catherine. I want to make sure I've got other board members with comments.
I just have a question.
Okay.
Can you clarify why we do this 1,000-hour instruction? Why are we not with the rest of the state in 990?
I'm not sure that the rest of the state is necessarily at 990, but that's what's required by law. And so we have 1,000, and I don't do you know if other districts do? Our board decided to provide 1,000 hours of instructional time to our students in our district, but it may vary in other districts as well. I don't know.
I heard once that we have that, it's a 10-hour margin. That we have it so we don't ever dip below 990. I can't remember who explained that to me, but someone explained it. Is it you?
That's a good,
that we,
good reason.
It's only 10 hours and 10 hours more, and so we try to meet a 1,000-hour standard, so we never accidentally slip below 990. I think Christy explained that to me.
That's a great reason.
If a school has to get out 2 hours early because the heat goes out of the building and it's December, then it's not going to be the end of the world because we have that little bit of time.
We don't have to schedule another day.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we were to push out this decision to, like Christy says, recommended to next year, what are we losing? What is it?
If we push this decision to next
Yeah,
year,
if we decide.
did you say what am I going to do?
I know. What are we losing?
Oh, because I thought
if we decide not to do late start. If we decide not to do late start this year because of this change, what do we lose? What does it look like?
Well, I don't know. We would revert back to the schedule that we had last year.
So yeah, schools would submit their proposed calendars, and ultimately it has to meet with superintendent's approval. So my guess is, like we've had in the past, some schools would turn some things in where they were barely making, to the hour, to the minute of hitting that number. Other schools, we've seen schools with as many instructional hours for students as high as 1,120, 30, 40 hours. So they've gone 100 hours over as sometimes in the past. The problem is, then it gets into the discussions that happen with, that's instructional hours, but that's because their collaboration time's built into the school day. Some schools don't have that luxury of being able to do that because they don't have the funds. Typically, what you see in a Title I school would be those students can rotate to here's your arts rotation, here's your library time, here's your PE time. Some other schools don't have as many options of who to hire in those times. So teachers can't meet during the school day because when the teachers meet during the school day, the students can be in the school with other instructors during the time of that teacher's meeting. And that just isn't possible in all of our schools. That's the piece that what we'd probably run into is schools, depending on the school and that culture and climate of that school, some would be probably fighting really hard on pushing that envelope, and we'd be taking it to the superintendent to say, is this approved or not approved?
I have a comment actually to your question, Jenny. This is what I think we're losing. We're losing the mental health benefits of late start. And what we know, and you weren't around when we did all the research, but what we know is that at the very top, an hour more sleep, and actually around 7:45 to 8:45 is the hour they're measuring, leads to a 68% reduction in suicidal ideation. So 68% fewer students have thoughts of suicide. And of course that rolls down. I mean, there's lesser percentages of things like anxiety and depression and et cetera. So that's what we'd lose for this year. The other thing we would lose is the opportunity to make this transition when we already have a transition time. So we go back, we're settled into another schedule, and it's harder to make that transition. So that's something else we lose.
Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate that feedback, but we'll go with our process, with the guidelines. So if you have other questions, if you want to ask them of Catherine, go ahead, but do it through me.
No, I'm just thinking about my community because we're the community that has to pick up the siblings. We are a high majority of that. We don't have a choice of not waking up early because our parents work really early and these kids are already up. We don't have that choice. So I'm concerned with that that retrospect in our community with this change. So I just want to get more information.
I have a follow-up question to that. I just have a follow-up question. What sort of after-school programs have we thought of? Because that was one thing we asked for. Is for in our low income, when we started this process a couple of years ago, we asked for expanded after-school programs for those kinds of schools. Have we thought about that at all? I know you guys have been on for other things, but are we thinking about that at all?
So can I just make a point of order before you answer? And I appreciate your follow-up question, but I think that the order is that let's let everyone else have a question. I think Mohammed hasn't asked any questions, and if Dottie has any before we have our follow-up. So maybe hold that. Is that, I feel like that was our process.
Yeah, that point of order is well taken. Thank you. Jenny, are you finished with your, okay.
I'm finished with my.
All right. Thanks, Jenny. Dottie, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I presented this late start recommendation to my class, my fourth period class, and they were initially like a little bit, but then they kind of came on board and they were really excited to go from 8:45 to 3. But I think that the longer the school holds out, like to 3:15, the more irritated they become. And especially when I said that the other option I think was 9:30 to 3:30, if I was correct, that was listed. That one received like a resolute no. Like not a single person in my class was supportive of that option. And so I'm wondering, would 8 work? I don't know if that would work, but I think that would be more supported by students. And I understand the argument that I really believe that waking up later and starting your school day later lowers the risk of teen suicide and depression. But I also know that the reason that carries over is because we have an hour more of sleep, like Board Member Kennedy said. And if that's not carried through the school day, if we still have the exact same amount of homework, if we have the exact same time it takes to get to our extracurriculars, the same length of clubs, we're not going to be sleeping in an hour later. Instead of going to bed at 1, we'll be going to bed at 2. And I say this realistically because that's what I had to do. And I think that if we can, just lay back on students just a tiny bit more. Thank you. If we can lay back on students just a tiny bit more and then do this policy, I think they need to coincide with each other. Otherwise, it's not going to have the benefit that we set out to give to students. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's not it's not just the late start. We need to think about how we're doing high school.
And the only piece I'd like to add into that is if we did do something like an 8:30 for high schools, that means some schools would have to start at 7:45 or at 9:15 because the bus runs, or we'd have to get a lot more buses and bus drivers, and I know that's been talked and bantered about a lot. And so to do the 2-tier busing system, we'd have to either start earlier or do another group a lot later.
Thank you. I'll take my opportunity to speak.
Melissa, Mohammed had his hand.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Go ahead. Ladies first.
Thank
You're good.
you, Mohammed. Thank you. I think I still very much support us starting our high schools at 8:45. The research is clear to me, and I believe everything that Catherine has said, and I believe the reports that I've seen that it's good for our students, and it has not just mental health benefits, but also academic benefits. What I hear, though, are lots of questions, lots of concerns, lots of issues that may be able to be worked through in the next few months. But I am concerned. I'm concerned about the questions I'm hearing. I'm concerned about the feedback we're receiving. I like this recommendation in the parts of the adjustments may be possible through the shared governance process. I think that that's important for some of the things that have been brought up by my fellow board members in terms of an early release. I would certainly hate transportation to be in complete control of these schedules, and so I think what we're trying to do is a balance, and we've talked about this as we've talked about it for several years. It is a push and pull balance. I really appreciated Jenny, Board Member Sika's question, though, because that's what I'm trying to get my mind around. Knowing that this is something I want to do and support, what's the best way to implement that? Is it just to go forward, or is it to take some time and say we will implement that in the next fall school year with input then from our new superintendent, some of these questions asked by board members. Thank you, Hoeli. And that the question I have is that something that the board could support? And it's something I'm considering and thinking about. And so thank you. Mohammed?
First of all, thank you so much for everything you've done, because I can only imagine there are so many things to connect to come up with this schedule. That's for sure. And we have a large district. And so with that said, I mean, it appears like everyone here understands the benefits of a late start, but also we do have concerns. And personally, as I'm sitting here, I think about students who do not have the privilege of having 2 vehicles parked in their driveway and give them a ride to school at their own leisure. And that's what I'm thinking about. I'm trying to really wrap my mind around, I've come from that background and I did not have a leisure of just like getting out of bed, dressed. 15 minutes later, I'm at school. So it does take time. So, and it appears like transportation has always been an issue. I would love to understand, is it like the district does not have enough funding to offer more buses, or is it just like a bigger, I would love a clarification on that, because I'm not sure how that works.
Well, we're still going to provide transportation, and transportation's not easy. Buses are expensive. Bus drivers are hard to come by, but even within this plan, we're still going to transport the same kids we were going to transport before. I would say that we've also, with Mr. Yapius from the foundation, have had conversations with UTA about making sure that some of our bus routes that come across town are timed such that they could be an alternative source of transportation for students if, say, someone did miss a first period, rather than just stay home all day. There would be a bus route that would get them there for the start of second period and some of those kinds of, we're working on those things right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So it appears like there are so many other little things that need to be taken care of before we can really say, it's not going to be a perfect, of course, you know, it's a moving vehicle and we got to keep repairing as we go. But I really, you know, I'm putting myself in the shoe of those students and their families. There are some families who work, 12, 16 hours, and those students are being depended on to take care of their siblings, pick them up, and so. And if we do not do right by those students, then we are not resolving this issue of the fact that 1 hour is gonna make them, mentally ready to do better at school. So we're affecting them in some way here. So that's my take on it. Sam, if you're listening, I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah, so that's my concern as well in here.
Thank you, Mohammed. We've gone around and everybody had an opportunity to speak. This is something that the board took action on in our last meeting. The superintendent pulled up the motion that was made. Maybe you want to go back to that so you can see that. And then the recommendation, what I'm asking for now is, would the board like to move this to action, to take action on this item?
Melissa,
If
could
we
I do
don't-
a point of order?
Please.
I'm sorry, because
Yeah,
I
please.
did ask, that we go around, but Catherine did have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So would that be okay if she
Of course.
did that, and then you could go ahead and do, since I interrupted her
Absolutely.
to make a point of order?
I actually did not get a first talking turn either, so, I mean, I answered the question that was asked, but,
Oh, no.
so,
Sorry, I did not.
oh, it's okay, that's okay.
You did.
So, but it certainly wasn't 2 minutes because I got interrupted, I guess is what I was saying.
It's okay.
My question is, we were planning on doing after-school programming for that hour and a half when we had, as well, one of the things we talked about very seriously about a year and a half ago. And I know that you guys have had a lot on your plates. You guys have summer school now to think about, all sorts of things going on. But has anything that happened, or have we thought about that, or what kind of plans could we make for that, for communities where we might need to have cover that time period for high school students that need to pick up their younger siblings? That would then provide care really from an early time in the morning, if people were starting at 8, to be an advantage to when high school kids would be able to get them, so a longer time period.
So what I could say is that I know our after-school program has been all along. They've really worked depending on whatever hour, whatever time a school got out. They've really worked to meet the needs of that family, of those families, of the community of that school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that they would continue to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Catherine.
and
That's a
as
good
you
question.
mentioned earlier, this notion that we are in a space where we can try new things, and we should be trying new things. I think at the middle school level, certainly we're looking at how do we expand those opportunities for kids, not just to have something academic after school per se, but find ways to start connecting them to high schools, find ways to connect them back to middle or elementary schools, so that we're really sort of thinking beyond what we've done historically, because we know that doesn't work for everybody. And I do believe there's space within in sort of this proposition to provide some of those opportunities to really think differently for high school kids about even their schedule. If we are able to really be flexible in a space where we can get a kid into an online class, even asynchronously, so that they are available to pick up their siblings on certain days of the week, that would be wonderful. I don't want us to get limited in our thinking about the possibilities of what we can do here.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that sentiment very much. So what I'm saying, we've had our opportunities to ask our questions and to talk around this. What I'd like to ask the board is how you feel about moving forward and taking action. And the reason I have this motion pulled up is that this is what the board approved at our last meeting. So unless we take some action tonight, this is the motion that we're moving forward with. And you've heard that there are some complications with this, is what's underlined. The plan that as presented had some issues with the minutes. So the superintendent has put together a proposal, and maybe we can move forward to that, Alan. But this is the board's decision to make. So what I'm asking is if the board would like to take a motion to move this to action so that we can make a decision on it.
President Ford, if I could just take the second round of the minute that I have.
Okay.
I still think, when I'm still where I'm at, I would love to see this implemented in the fall. And I don't think that it would be too much of an ask to take another 2 to 4 weeks just to iron out some of the concerns that we're hearing tonight, and then bring this proposal back either on the 18th or the 1st of June for consideration.
Thanks for that feedback, Nate. Hoali?
Larry, what's the latest you really need? I know you want this like today, but as you can see, there's a lot of concerns. Is next week?
I feel like the longer we go, the harder this will be on families, because people are going to have to plan. If we make this change, I don't think there's I think we're committed to this change. I don't think there's a way to do it without any pain at all. There's going to be some hard parts to it. I think the sooner we can tell parents, then the sooner they can work with their employers, because it's going to change how some people, the relationship between work and school is crucial. And so I really do feel like the sooner the better. I feel like I don't feel like there's if there are things that you all want brought back, we're going to have to work out very specifically what those are. But I think we can. I feel like we can do that. That's why I backed the recommendation up to this. It's very open, and then you got a lot of smart people here that can work on these problems, and they're student oriented. Okay, they're not. It's not just the logistics of this thing. We're thinking about how does this affect students? How does it affect our families? And we want to take care of everyone in the very best way that we can. And we have real problems. The real problem of needing a high schooler to pick up a younger student, that's real. But like Becky said, and I know from my own experience last year at Bryant, is, we made after school programming happen to take care of those kids until someone could pick them up. So we're going to have to, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to figure out, and I don't know. All I want to say is that I don't think we're going to be able to figure out every single detail and expect that it will be perfect. I think we're going to have to, at some point, and it's your decision when, but at some point we're going to have to take the leap, count on the quality people that we have both here and in our schools to do the work well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because the only big difference, or like an alternative proposal for me, would just be like the high schools being 8:30, right? Like seeing that have been thought through you, and then like that's the only difference for me. Other than that, for me personally, I would have been like, oh, I'm taking action today for this, because that's personally me. Because yeah, I also see the urgency, and I also understand there's a lot of dilemmas and everything, but there's a lot of problems, but the root of the problem is like you're saying after school. The high schoolers can't even do after school programs because they had to pick up their siblings. So it's like their siblings, if they had after school programs or if they had support, then the high, you know, so it's not even about the scheduling. It's about other type of things that I think aren't related to this vote. And so that's why I would love to see that, but I feel okay making a decision today for this. But it would have been nice to have a 8:30 kind of option to see what it meant and looked like. And like in your recommendations generally. But maybe that's part of your recommendations, like, oh, 8:30 is not good. That's why we didn't even put it there.
It does force the other start time to 7:45, right? So, I mean, the kids that are going to go early, now they're going to go 15 minutes early. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think this works. Others could disagree, and I understand. I certainly understand that.
Yeah, so that's all on my end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christy had a comment, question.
I really appreciate the information that school support has given us tonight. And as Mr. Geslin said, I think that flexibility is so important simply because, you know, we have learned from this past year that the delivery of how education has been given to our kids has obviously been all over the map, right? But for me, that's not what we're really talking about tonight is about, because we don't really have the flexibility in a start time and an end time. We have to have so many hours in a year in order to provide instruction for our kids. And instruction and contract time are two different things. And so I think that, you know, to Brian's point, you know, there were a lot of different, you know, instructional times, but part of that had to do with, you know, the block, right? I mean, if you're taking advantage of the full block, you could have up to 1,050 hours. But I think what the point is for me tonight is I'm having a difficult time with this because it's just now being presented to us tonight. You know, of moving to 3:15, possibly, you know, seeing a 3:38 if some schools, you know, chose to do that. So I'm struggling with that. And I think that, you know, the transparency for our community, for our parents, deserves more of a conversation. So I agree with what Nate's saying. I would, even though I know, Superintendent, you're asking for a little bit more information, I am just really hesitant to make this decision tonight without having a little bit more input from our community and from our employees.
Thanks, Christy.
Can I ask the network directors one question here, just for clarification?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, if we're talking about this in terms of if now's not the moment, as Vice President Salazar said, how does this impact schools and families? I mean, is it such that we should put it off for a year, or try to come back in you know 2 or 4 weeks with another answer? And I'm really just asking for opinion.
I'll take 2 weeks over a year.
4 weeks I don't think would work. The SIC, people have plans when school lets out. School community councils, trying to get them together to gather any input on pieces of it. Our school improvement councils, that's the faculty group within the school. Teachers have plans and will be gone. I just don't think if we wait 4 weeks, then it just isn't going to happen. I think 2 would be the maximum, but I'd like even less.
We could handle 2, because then it could get to our SICs and move through that process. Longer than that would cause problems. And we have teachers that are anxious to know. We have families that are anxious to know. And schools. Either way, if we move it forward, then we have to deal with time before school. If we move it back, we have to deal with time after school. What that really reminds us all is that we're school communities, and that our principals have to have those opportunities to listen to the communities and work with them, right? And meet those needs. We have 2 principals who have come to us and said, we've got to go back. We can't be on the B schedule. We have to be on the A schedule because our parents have to get to work, right? And so we want to work with them. It's giving us a chance to let our teachers and our principals work together with families and get this ironed out before they leave for the summer.
So the superintendent asked your opinion. I feel like I've got it.
Do you want my straight up opinion?
Please.
Opinion on now or later?
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe waiting is not going to make a whole lot of difference. We're still going to have to face changes. We're still going to have to work out whether it's before school
Right.
or after school. I think I believe we should move forward.
Right. The 1,000 hours are still there in board policy. So if we start later, you're right. It's just it's shifting do we have more problems before school or after school? There's still problems to be worked out, but we're confident in our communities and our principals to be able to work out 99% of those problems. And there's still going to be some in the end, but we have that right now. And to Chris's point, what we've been doing, I don't think has been, it isn't as effective as it could be. We have hardworking people. We're not getting the kind of results we want to see, though. This could help us, and I think Board Member Kennedy pointed toward that as well, about the research and what's behind making this change and giving it a try. I agree that the sooner we can decide this, the better, so tonight would be great.
Thanks for that.
I think Dottie had some.
Dottie?
All right, I'll go really
Thank
quickly.
you. Yep, no, you're good.
I would actually agree with a lot of what has been said today, especially with Board Member Kennedy and you're Miss Pitto, right? Okay, it's been a while. I haven't seen you in person.
I was gonna say, I don't think you've ever seen me.
Yeah, I don't think so, but it's nice to meet you. That I would agree that I think we have a really great transition period going from online school. I'm still online. 70% of most of the classes I take, the students are still online. And I think going directly from online to in-person and changing the start time is going to be your best bet for success. The longer we wait out, the harder it's going to happen. I just texted my sister and my 5th grade elementary school teacher, both of whom said that they do believe that they think that if the decision is not made now, that there's not an opportunity to affect change for other schools and other grades and other students like me. I personally do not want to go back to school at 7:45 in the morning, and I think, I think about this, and I do realize that there's potential discomfort at ending school at 3:15 versus 3, or not having the early out, but I think that having the late wake-up time far outweighs any potential discomfort that a student might feel. And any new plan, there's always going to be mitigating tactics that we need to employ. I'm sure the same thing happened when we decided that high school started at 7:45. I can imagine some people were not happy with that. I would be one of them. But, we did it. And I think that's going to be the case with any plan. And we just have to go with it because over time, I think it's going to be beneficial to students. And if we start right now, we can affect a larger change for an entire year of students, and that's a lot of students. That's 22,000 students in our school district who will have a better year, and I think that we should do it today and pass it, otherwise it's not going to happen and we're going to lose that momentum. Thanks.
Thank you, Dottie. Any other thoughts? Okay, I'm open to accepting a motion to move this to action if the board would like.
I move that we move Superintendent Madden's plan to action.
Okay. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So the motion is made that we move this we're calling it Superintendent Madden's plan. It's the updated recommendation to action. Motion by Catherine and seconded by Nate. Any discussion to moving this to action? All right, let's go ahead and vote, and we're voting on the motion, which is moving this updated recommendation from Superintendent Madden to action. And we'll start this time 7-1. Start with you, Christy.
Sorry. Okay, Christy Sweat, no.
Oh, that's me. Melissa Ford, no.
Mohammed.
Oh, it's me.
First order.
Ooh, Mohammed, yes.
Yes. Thanks, Mohammed. Nate?
Nate, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Jenny Sika, no.
Puela, yes.
Well, yes. Okay, so we've moved this to action. Thank you, board members. Now the question, our recent practice has been that we take action on the things that have been moved to action from discussion immediate to their movement. With the board, just by nodding, let me know if you'd like to take action on this right now. Okay, we'll take action on this, the motion that's been moved to action. If Catherine, if you want to restate your motion, the main motion.
The motion that I'm from before.
Well, that's what you moved to action.
Oh, the motion I move for action is Superintendent Madden's
Proposal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I move that we accept Superintendent Madden's proposal, where the 3 traditional high schools would start at 8:45, other schools would start at 8 or 8:45, and adjustments may be possible through shared governance and collaboration with school leadership.
Okay, that's the main motion. Do I have a second to the motion?
I second it.
Okay.
And it's so nice to see it and read it, just like seeing it and reading it. That's
It's great, right?
Keep doing that. That helps
Also nice to be.
streamline.
Yeah, good.
Perfect.
Melissa?
Yes.
I would like to offer an amendment.
Okay.
I think that this does not include what we voted on, which was the half-day, on Fridays and the end time at 3, and I think that needs to be clarified. So the motion would be what it says, along with there would not be a half-day on Friday, and school would end at 3:15.
For high
So,
For high schools.
okay, thanks for that clarification, Catherine. That's what I was going to ask too. So the amendment, the motion, amended motion is that we would support the superintendent's recommendation, which has the 3 traditional high schools starting at 8:45 and ending at 3:15 without an early release Friday. And the other schools would start at 8 a.m. or 8:45, and adjustments may be possible through shared governance and collaboration with school leadership. That's the motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the amended motion from Christy and seconded by Jenny. Any discussion to the amendment?
I just wanted a point of, what is it?
Order.
There's so many points.
Or
We
clarification?
never voted on the motion first, and so we're
We don't
voting.
have to, because we can do the amendment first. If the amendment doesn't pass, then we'll go back to the main motion.
The main motion.
But if the amendment
Oh, okay.
passes, then
Okay, I didn't know. I thought we had to vote on the motion and then allow any discussion, and then amendments
Yeah.
were allowed.
No, no.
Okay, cool.
But I can bring our parliamentarian to the table if we'd like. That's right. Okay.
President Ford, you vote on the amendment first, and then if the amendment passes, then you vote on the main motion with the amended language.
Oh, cool.
I would ask Board Member Sweat if she would specify in her amendment that elementary schools may have half-days if they choose.
Oh, I think that.
And
I think
middle?
That's what he.
That's
what
in
he-
there.
Yes,
I
but
think if we said,
I think it's just really good to have that out there, because I think that makes people really anxious if we don't
Okay.
say that.
Point of order for the
Yeah, we've got a parliamentarian, point of order.
So that motion has already been seconded, so you need to vote on that, and
And then if it fails, we could
Board
add that.
Member Kennedy would need to make her own motion, which would be seconded. There's no
Mhm.
such thing as a friendly.
Right.
Got it.
So Catherine, if you would like to make another amendment, we would vote on your amendment if it's got a second.
Or the other way to do it is Jenny could take back her second for just 1 second.
No. No. So if you would like to restate a motion, or if anybody would like to make an amendment,
No, but we have to vote on the First Amendment, right?
We have to vote on the
Correct.
first
You
amendment.
have to, there's an
No.
amendment on.
No.
Debating the motion to amend.
Right,
currently, and
right.
then you would vote on that, and then if Board Member Kennedy would like to make a second amendment on a different
That's
portion,
right.
then she would need a second, and then you would debate and vote on that, and then go back to your main motion.
Okay.
clear, so we can continue debate on the motion that's on the table. Or if we're prepared to vote on the motion on the table, let's go ahead and vote on the motion on the table. And we'll start with that one, 3-2. So remember, we're following our guidelines. So it'll be Catherine, then Nate is for Mohammed.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Okay.
Support the amendment.
Nate Salazar, yes on the amendment.
Mohammed, yes on the amendment.
All right, Melissa Ford, yes.
Huele, yes. Oh, no, just kidding.
How did you get Jenny?
Yeah.
She's coming back to her. She's end.
Make sure
It's hard to count.
You're doing this so we don't fall asleep, right?
Yeah, I'm keeping you honest. You approve these guidelines. I'm just trying to follow them.
I have no idea where we're at.
So it's your
Christy
motion.
Sweat, Christy Sweat, yes.
Huele, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Okay, so the amended motion passes. Now we've got a main motion on the table,
With the
which
amended
which
language.
includes the amended language. Now, if we have anybody who would like to make another motion, another amendment, feel free to do so.
Okay, I would like to specify for the mental health of our administrators and teachers that we allow, that this schedule would allow for early release times for middle schools and elementary schools. For half days, once a week for elementary schools and middle schools.
All right, do I have a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay, the motion is seconded. Any discussion to the motion? So my thoughts on that is that I do support the option of an early release for elementary schools and middle schools. I support the mental health of teachers. I think it's embedded in this adjustments may be possible through shared governance, and I do want to leave that decision through shared governance.
Right.
And so I feel like us specifying it that specifically maybe ties more hands than it opens, which is the intent, to open hands. So I appreciate what your intent is,
Well,
but
the
I feel like...
intent is to let people know that that's a possibility, because that was a big concern last year when we didn't spell it out.
I appreciate that. My only thought is we can signal that intent very clearly without making it part of binding language.
Well, there's nothing binding, I mean, I guess there's nothing binding about it. It's just like that the adjustments include half-days for elementary school and middle school.
We don't need to debate it, but my thought is I support what you're trying to do. I just think it's not going to be an exhaustive list, so why start the list? But it's just a different way of looking at the same thing. So I appreciate what you're saying. So, but that's the motion, and we have the motion is that we add for the mental health of our teachers.
Just add, so adjustments including half-days, weekly half-days for elementary and middle schools.
May be possible through shared governance.
Yep.
Okay. And I hate to be the one who keeps speaking to this, but I want to make sure we're clear too. I mean, because embedded in this is a lot of things. Like, we do want to reach the 1,000 instructional hours. That's not in this motion, but it's still an expectation, I think, from me, and I think from the board, some of that. So I do think that we need to be careful about what we prescribe in the language of the motion versus what we give direction on.
There's nothing prescribed in that language of the motion.
Okay, that's fair. So let's go ahead and vote. If there's no other discussion to the amended motion, let's go ahead and vote on that. And this time we'll go just how about around the table, and then we'll go back to the other process.
Might start over by Mohammed.
Just start here.
That's smart.
Yes.
And this
Mohammed.
is,
On the amended language that we're adding early or half days.
No, we are not adding half-days. We're
Possibility of
adding
half days.
adjustments
I can say.
include.
Yeah, that's how I have it. Adjustments, comma, including early release for middle school or high school may be possible.
Not high school,
Okay.
for middle
I mean,
school
for
and
middle schools and elementary schools may be possible, and then continue through this process.
Okay.
Mohammed, yes.
Jenny Sika.
no.
Melissa Ford, no. Nate, it's you.
Nate, yes.
Huele, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay, that amendment passes. So now we're back to the main motion, which, based on the amendments, is we motion that we approve the superintendent's updated recommendation that includes the 3 traditional high schools starting at 8:45 a.m., ending at 3:15 p.m. with no early release Fridays. Other schools would start at 8 a.m. or 8:45 a.m., and adjustments, including half days, may be possible through shared governance and collaboration with school leadership. That's the motion
For elementary and
for elementary and middle schools.
It's a slightly different language, it seems like, but okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to read it, Superintendent?
Well, I only have the part that the adjustments, comma, including early release for elementary or middle schools may be possible.
Through shared governance and collaboration with school and leadership. Is everybody clear on the motion, or should I restate it?
I think we're good.
Clear.
Okay. That motion was made by, I think, by Catherine and seconded by Hoel Lee, with amendments in the process. So if there's no more discussion to this motion, we'll go ahead and vote.
I'm sorry.
Christy.
I am. I appreciate all the work and the conversation that's been done tonight, but for me personally, I just feel like I wish that we would have had, now we're in a time crunch, right? And that's what our school support said, and so I'm feeling very anxious that I'm being put in a position where I have to make a decision tonight. So although I appreciate everything you've brought to us, tonight, it still gives me anxiety knowing that we're making this, this quickly, although I totally support late start.
Any other discussion to the motion?
I just want to say that
Really?
we already voted on this stuff last time, and so I'm just making sure that we follow law.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm voting, but I'm going to vote yes.
Thanks, Welly. Any other discussion, Nate?
I just really hope we don't have to come back and make another decision for a late start moving forward. I really appreciate the feedback and Becky and our network directors and superintendent and my board colleagues, especially Dottie, for helping me see this in a different perspective. So I do appreciate that. But I really hope that this is the last time we make a decision on late start, unless we need to adjust things moving forward in subsequent years.
Okay, so we've now used we'll vote on this motion. We've used the methods that you've given me in the guidelines. So we're back to round 1, which is 1 through 7.
Okay.
Voting on the motion. Hoel Lee.
Yeah, Jorge, yes.
Jenny Sika, no.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, no.
Christy Sweat, no.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you to school leadership and support for being here.
Can I just, before they leave, I just,
Yes, thank
I
you.
just think they deserve a big thank you for what they've done this year. People have worked. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
President Ford, could I get a clarification from something that Board Member Organista said about following the law? I'm not really sure what you meant by that.
So I think it was that we didn't have enough hours, right? Accidentally, we voted on not having enough hours in our last time, so that's why we had to adjust it.
Referring to. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Christy, and thank you for that clarification, Hoeli. All right, we'll move to the next item on our discussion agenda, which is the final budgeted property tax rates. And for this discussion, I will turn the time to our business administrator, Kersley, and a comment to board members that we will be taking a quick 5-minute recess at 8:35. So in about 6 minutes, we'll take a quick break and then return after 5 minutes. So at 8:35, we'll take a 5-minute break till 8:40. Business Administrator Kersley.
Attached to your agenda is the presentation of final budgeted tax rates. It's the same presentation you saw on April 6th. It's called final because we're working on finalizing the final budgeted, because we are working on finalizing the budget for the 21-22 school year. But please note the final tax rates are not set until the tax commission finalizes their numbers in June. So these are the tax rates based on our estimates, waiting for the final estimates from the tax commission. So what I want to clarify or point out, so we've discussed the certified tax rate. Certified tax rate is the rate next year, which will bring in the same amount of money for this year. What's not included in the certified tax rate is the debt levy. Debt levy is a tax levy that will bring in enough to cover the district's debt payments for the year. As discussed in the past, we paid off one of our bonds this year, so the debt levy will decrease next year by approximately $4.4 million. The recommended tax rates in this presentation show us increasing the capital rate by a percentage that will recapture that $4.4 million and bring it into the capital fund for capital projects such as security updates at elementary schools with vestibules, and also put towards the sustainability program and the items for capital that will be required to meet those sustainability goals. Those would be the immediate items we'd be using that for, and then future construction projects. So what I am asking from the board is guidance of wanting to recapture that $4.4 million as the budget is currently built that way. We don't have to approve tax rates. You'll have two more chances to finally approve the tax rates. One, when we approve the budget on June 1st, and if we choose to recapture this $4.4 million at the Truth and Taxation hearing in August.
Okay. Thank you, Business Administrator. So I think what I'm hearing you're looking for is feedback on how the board feels about the property tax rate and whether or not we would do Truth and Taxation.
Correct.
And your recommendation is that we
recapture the $4.4 million rolling off of debt and move it over to the capital levy and go through Truth and Taxation in August.
Okay. All right. Comments from discussion from the board following our procedure. 2 minutes and then one. Hoeli?
Well, our procedure is 3 minutes, first round, and then second round's 2. And then once we're in action, it's 1 minute.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a great productive time with Alan, geeking out on numbers and graphs. And I already told him I'm gonna make 2 different infographics on different things on taxes and stuff in charter schools. I was like, I didn't know this stuff. But anyways, when it comes to this subject, I love Alan's recommendation. I think it makes sense. We have a lot of the community, at least what I've heard, has a lot of ideas of things that need to be paid through the capital fund, right? And so it makes sense if people are already paying that. And I think you're talking about how you gave a good example, and I'm a physical example of it, how the students that we build these schools for, then they pay in the future, right? And as I went through all the elementary schools that are new in my precinct, Escalante, Northwest, North Star. I went through them the first years they were built. And now I'm an adult and paying the taxes for those things a little bit too, right? So it's you're really investing, and then when they grow up, they still, if those things are still being paid, they're being paid as adults. And so I think keeping it so that we continue to invest, there's a lot of important big things that we need to do in the capital fund. And if we just keep that, I think it makes sense. It's a little harder to go back and ask we have to do the what is it called, Truth and Taxation, which sounds scary. but the Truth and Taxation, we're gonna have to do that at some point. Might as well just do it again and fill it out, because we get feedback from the community. But I think I like Alan's recommendation.
Thanks, Wally. Other comments? I will ask a quick question. Are you looking for us to take action on this tonight, or are you just wanting us to discuss and provide general feedback so you kind of know where we're at?
Right, general feedback to know, do we keep the budget as I've currently built it, or do we tweak it for when you will approve it on June 1st? And at June 1st is when we will take action on the budget with the tax rates in it, knowing that again you will take action in August for Truth and Taxation if that's the direction we go.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Christy.
So, Alan, thank you for the great information that you provided for us and for the booklet, that you gave to us, and for the conversation you and I had. I would just like our board to consider that we don't float that levy, that the $4.4 million, could be put towards tax relief for our taxpayers. I think that as a previous board, one of the things that we had talked about, and again, this is a great example of a previous board, and then there's only a few of us that are still here, looking at how important it was to have money to build those 2 elementary schools and then have the money to rebuild the district office without having to go out to the taxpayers. And that's what that sunset money helped us do. I think that for me, especially if this board is going to be talking about bonding, that we consider, not floating that, and that we give a little tax relief before we go into the question of whether or not we're going to bond, which is a longer period of time for our taxpayers to be helping us with some of those capital projects, as Joel Lee, pointed out. I did have a question, Alan, that I just wanted to be clear on because I wasn't really sure. That the $4.4 million, we're not actually receiving that right now. Is that correct?
We are receiving it under the debt levy.
Under the debt levy, but it goes to pay that.
Right, it goes to pay off our bonds.
Right.
So it's money that currently is not included in the capital, so it would be increasing the funds available in the capital by the 4.4.
By the 4.4. So because of the decision that our board has made over the past couple of years of using capital money for other things, I would just say that I feel a little heartburn asking our taxpayers to help replenish that capital fund. So I would just like you to consider that, as we go forward. And I appreciate, the fiduciary, knowledge that Alan has and what he's provided for us. But I just felt like I needed to say that based on my past experience with how we have been trying to pay as we go.
Thank you, Christy. So I'm going to halt our conversation for just a few minutes, for 5 minutes, and we've heard from Joelle and Christy and providing feedback, and we'll give opportunity for the rest of us at 8:40. Thank you.
Ready, set, go. Go eat. Gotta start with some sweets.
He's got to break his fast.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Some dates for sure.
She is.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'll go with some dates.
She does look a lot like
Yes. Oh, good.
8:40.
And the teachers, kind of, last year everybody, because of the pandemic, but I don't know, it's the teachers.
Okay, I want to give the rest of the board members an opportunity to provide feedback to Business Administrator Kersley on this property tax rate. The final budgeted property tax rates is presented.
Just quick question. This doesn't need to go on action, right? Technically.
Right, because we won't vote. It's really just how do I design the budget?
He's
So
wanting feedback.
on June 1st, when you vote on it, I can have it designed to the best of our ability of how the board wants it.
We're providing feedback, but
So
that's
I'll
all.
just,
Catherine?
this is my feedback. So I want to respect what Board Member Sweat said. At the same time, I really like the ability for us to not raise taxes on anyone. Their taxes stay the same, but could use the float to generate more money. I think that people are generally happy if they see that their taxes stay the same and don't go up. That lowering taxes a little bit by $30 to $50 does not give us enough of a boost to not claim that float money, because we won't be raising taxes at all. People will not see their taxes go up. We'll just take the float. So I support your budget the way it is.
Thanks, Catherine. Other, Mohammed?
Okay. All of us here are representations of our communities. Everything we decide is to make sure that is not affecting our community in any way. There are already increases that are like proposed right now by the city council in terms of increasing water bills or whatever percentage they need to add. And we just want to make sure that we are not adding anything to the responsibility of the community to fund certain things. The reason I say so, because we already know Salt Lake is very expensive. We're losing families of a diverse community because they can't afford to live in Salt Lake anymore. And we want to make sure every time we any decision that we think about is very cognizant and very considerate of those families. And that's what I stand. And I appreciate everything you've done here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Other feedback? I'll go ahead and tell you where I'm at. I've appreciated the budget process. I've appreciated the way you've met with board members. I appreciated having my questions answered. And I know we'll have more questions and you'll take more time to answer questions as we go forward. My feeling on it is we've done this before where we've recaptured the money for the debt levy. I just don't feel like this is a year I would like to go to taxpayers and do a truth in taxation. I think the board has talked about wanting to do bonding for capital projects. And if we do that in 2 years, for example, we could add that about $8.5 million to the bond and cover what we would have recaptured. And in the process of going out for that bond, I would like to be able to just not have increased taxes in this year, in this fiscal year. I don't think this is the year I would like to do that. That's my feedback. Others? Jenny, you have thoughts on it? Want to think about it?
I like Alan. He's a good guy.
I do too.
He does good work. Even though they separated us. I'm still here to support you.
That's awesome feedback, Jenny. Okay, Nate?
I support Alan's plan.
Okay. That's good feedback for you.
Yep.
And we'll keep working on that.
Yeah, so I think not total consensus, but I'm going to leave the capital budget as is.
I hear it leaning toward including that.
And then we'll have a time
we'll talk
again
about it again.
to talk it. We'll have 2 more board meetings to discuss it further.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. If the board's ready to move on, we'll move to the next item on the discussion agenda, which is the executive summary of the budget. Ready? Okay. This is also going to be directed by our business administrator, Alan Kersley.
So the executive summary of the budget is just the first part of the budget book, as it says, an executive summary. I have met with all of you. Jenny and I haven't met yet, but give me a call. We'll meet. Just to go over the parts of the budget that you haven't seen yet. We have discussed in the past capital and debt. In small group meetings, we've gone over the general fund budget, special revenue funds, and internal service funds. This summary just kind of gives some narrative about where the budget's going. It has some summary schedules in it. There's also some educational pieces in there that is written by Dr. Hall. So how the rest of the budget process will work is next board meeting, we will have a draft of the entire budget book. The board meeting after that, the board will be voting on the budget. So what I would encourage you is to read through this summary and be ready to receive the full budget book for next board meeting. And if you have any questions, you want to discuss anything, please get with me so that on June 1st, when the board is ready to vote on the budget, you've had a chance to have your questions or concerns answered.
Thank you. So do I have any discussion on this executive summary? Any discussion on this timeline that Alan is talking about? We support that plan. Having read through it, it represents a significant amount of work from a significant amount of people. So thank you. I think I'm seeing nods that there's support for what you've outlined, and we'll move forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. The next item on our discussion agenda is board compensation. And for this, I will also turn the time to our business administrator, Alan Kersley. This is on the board agenda at request of board members. It's something that's come up several times over the years. And so I'll let Alan lead the discussion on this at this point.
So attached to your agenda was a study that was commissioned by the board back in 2017 to compare board salaries throughout the state. We've attached that again for your review as we have many new board members who haven't seen that. So this was first presented in 2017, was reviewed again by the board in October 2019. Here we're looking at it again. In my cover letter, I said the data has remained relatively unchanged, and that's mostly true. For school districts, the data has remained relatively unchanged. There have been some other changes to city council pay, as the study also refers to city council pay as well, and that's those are not data that I updated or checked on. I just checked on school districts. In addition to the study, one thing that I would recommend is we discuss this. Right now, every 2 years, we buy computers for the board members, and each board member likes, some like your Apples, some like your HPs. What I would also recommend is if we choose to adjust the board compensation, that we look at adding a computer stipend every 2 years. So we would just allocate monies to you, and then you can go buy whatever computer suits your needs. We would give you a flat amount. If you want a supercomputer, then you'd be paying the difference. But that would also be something that I would recommend.
Do you have another recommendation based on what you've presented to the board?
Yes, so the study recommends, the 2017 study recommends at least a jump to 10,000. As other districts are at 12,000, I would recommend we match what some other districts are at. We don't want to address this issue year after year after year to keep up with other districts, so it'd be nice just to move it, and my suggestion would be implement a $12,000 annual salary for board members, along with a computer stipend of probably $2,000.
Okay.
That would also cover any other cell phone expenses you incur as a board member, any other electronics, incidentals, and so forth.
Okay. Would you recommend any changes to the compensation we get for additional meetings, or just move to a annual salary?
I would recommend we leave that where it is. It's currently at $60 per meeting with a maximum of 12 meetings. Rarely do we have more than 12 meetings. The last year's been kind of an exception. But I would recommend...
Maybe remind board members where we're at right now in that.
Yes, so as far as the 12 meetings start counting on January 1, and I believe we've done 11 if memory serves.
This is just since we started our term?
Yes.
that feels about right.
So if you keep having additional meetings, you're not going to get any additional pay.
Thank you. We have the information presented, and we have a recommendation from our business administrator. I'd like to open it for discussion.
I just do want to clarify and note, if the board does choose to adjust their compensation package, that will require a public hearing. And if you choose to, I would suggest, since the budget hearing also has to be a public hearing on June 1st, to also, if the board chooses to, have a public hearing on that day.
That's a good idea. Thank you. All right, discussion. Hoali?
Yeah, like when I was meeting with Alan, I was asking those questions, and that was part of the recommendations, like really try to connect it with the budget public hearing, which I think is smart. Yeah, I don't think any of us ran because of the money. And even with this increase, like I don't think it's gonna like motivate people to run anyways. Like, you know, I think the point is lots of the spotlight has been on a lot of governing bodies, including school boards all over the country. And I think when people actually started looking at how much we got paid as a school district, they're like, wow, you really do this because you care. I'm like, yeah. And so, you know, we're all of us have been in different positions in terms of like how we are full-time workers or full-time students or full-time parents or whatever, right? And so this would support and help a lot of people, especially elected officials that are people of color, I think, in the future, including us, that like really have a lot of responsibility. I'm not saying that white people don't have responsibilities, but a lot of people of color have a lot of responsibilities too. And I think the more we can support people running for office, and they don't have to always have to split their time, because they can work also, but they don't have to, you know, I think this is just super nice, and it will help a lot of us. And the truth and or the, what is this one, public hearing? Mm-hmm. The public hearing will be, we can engage with the community and share with them, because I think we have to just have a strong reasoning of why this is important for us. And one of the questions I had for you, Alan, right, and I'm halfway in, was like, is there money already, like, right? And then your answer was?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, you know, the increase times 7 board members, it's not a significant amount of increase to the total budget. So there are funds available for it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the biggest concern with more people is like, oh, our tax is going to increase or stuff like that, which the answer is no, it's there's money and stuff. So so yeah, that's just my general feeling. So was the process, are we able to take action and it moves to then having a public hearing? Is that what has to happen, or?
So I think it's just for discussion today.
Oh, okay.
No action is anticipated to be taken today.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, but generally I'm positive about this.
I think for clarification, what I'd like to know is if the board would like Alan, to schedule a public hearing on this, and then we would take action there. So what I'm hearing from you is that yes, you want to move forward. Okay, other discussion? Ahmed?
I'm sure some are going to be afraid. Okay, community. Let me tell you something. We are not increasing your taxes to be compensated. As a matter of fact, so many families, just as Wally has mentioned, that actually wondered what the pay is. And I just start with telling them 3,720, and I stop. And then I say, a year, and their jaw drops. And I'm telling them there, we are in it here because we care. And I really appreciate that you are actually bringing this to the attention as well. We have families, we have responsibilities. And not only that, also would like it to be a very attractive position for future candidates to be able to run. Because a lot of people are just like, no, too much time, it's not covering my cost or so. But again, we are in it here for because we are passionate about what we are doing. And I think the time is here that we take action on it, and especially, that we discuss it and move on, and especially with the fact that it's not, taken away from anything that will affect the budget in the long run or so. Thank you, Alan.
Other comments or discussion to this topic? Anybody want to provide feedback? Do you want to do a public hearing? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take feedback if you want. Go ahead, Catherine.
Chris, Board Member Sweat's asking if we have to make a motion to do that, but I guess I'd like to bring it to my community groups. I know that when the City Council, I think that they're on your chart. I expanded your chart because it was so tiny, and it's not yours really, but they're on there as 25K a year, and I think that they increased their salary to 34.
30.
Was it 36? About what?
Almost.
Yeah, it was almost 4 years ago. So when they did that, there was general community support. They may have one additional meeting a month, more than we do, in terms of their board meetings, but they probably don't have SCC. They don't have SCC meetings, things like that. So I don't know how different their workload is than ours, but I think I'd like to go to my community and see what they say. They were very supportive when they went to when it was City Council increasing. But I'd go to their 2 meetings and then have a hearing to see what the community says about it. I support that.
You support a hearing?
Yes, with enough time to go to my community councils.
Hearing would be June
1st.
Right.
And we could put it on a discussion next meeting as well, if the board is supportive of that, or not. I'm just going to follow board direction on this.
I support a hearing.
I've got 3 people who are supporting a public hearing.
With the time to go to my my community.
Is June 1st not enough time?
Nope, it's enough time.
Okay.
It's a month.
Okay, that's what we're recommending. That's what Alan is recommending. Okay. Any other feedback on whether?
Just one thing, for the City Council, and they have people who are assisting them, like in drafting emails, responding to, but everything here is honest, and you can only imagine. So I ask people to text me, because email is going to get lost in there. So, but that's just like something to keep in mind as well.
Nate?
I support the business administrator's recommendation for a hearing on June 1st.
Okay. All right. Any other feedback? Okay. Given that I have 4 people supporting a public hearing, we'll move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the discussion agenda is the property transfer. And this is also going to be addressed by our business administrator, Alan Kersley. Thanks, Alan.
So if you remember a few board meetings ago, we discussed a small piece of property down, well, it's now in the Mill Creek area. It was annexed from Salt Lake City into Mill Creek City. With that annexation and changing the boundaries, it did not alter who collects the taxes. So we, Salt Lake City School District, continue to collect the taxes on that piece of those parcels of land, which are now part of Mill Creek City. Mill Creek City is looking at doing a CRDA, which is similar to a redevelopment agency plan with that property. So we've discussed in the past, we have some options. We can do nothing with the property, keep collecting the taxes. It's about $40,000 a year we collect on these parcels that are in question. We can do nothing. We can keep the property in our boundaries and know that the Salt Lake City School District boundaries include a small piece of land that is not in Salt Lake City. We can keep it and participate, or at least hear out Mill Creek's discussion of their CRDA plan, or we can transfer the property over to Granite School District, which is the school district taxing entity for the remainder of Mill Creek City. And those would be the options. That was the presentation. It was, I believe, just last board meeting. So now it's here for board discussion, and then we would expect to move it to action on the next board meeting.
Okay, love to hear what board members think about this property transfer. Mohammed?
Okay. Thank you, Alan, and I love how you pointed it in the map. Perfect. Know exactly what to drive. So, I personally would like to maintain that property, keep it to, it is our own property. The reason is because if we were to give it to Mill Creek, yes, they have a development out there, but for us, I'm looking at it in the long run, looking at the future, Yes, we may be collecting taxes on it, but at the same time, that property eventually can be used for something that we can benefit from as a district. It's like, I'm looking like, in the future, because we already see the properties are increasing in value. Yes, it costs $40,000 a year. But the land, it is part of our property, and I personally would not transfer it to another entity or so.
Thanks, Mohammed. Other comments on this, Hawali?
What is your recommendation? You didn't have a recommendation. Maybe you did it on purpose. You're like, I don't want this.
Well, I mean, I don't want anyone to think, oh, $40,000, we don't really care, because we do. I mean, we need every penny we can get. However, it's been the long-standing statement that the Salt Lake City School District boundaries are contiguous with the Salt Lake City boundaries. And at this point, that is no longer the case. And just for ease of going forward and how we represent our district and how we draw our maps and draw our boundaries, etc., my recommendation is to turn it over to Granite.
Oh, and so that's your recommendation. And so if we turn it over to them, it's not selling. We just give it to them, right?
Right. There's some legal process we have to go through. It's basically changing our boundaries to now exclude that, and then changing Granite's boundaries to include it, and they become the taxing entity for that piece of property.
So your general recommendation, or one of the main reasons that it's been easier to say that the boundaries are the same for the city and the district, and your general recommendation would be just to make that ease stay for whether PR or just the relationships we do have, or just
relationships, ease. It's just, if you look at a map of Salt Lake City, you're always going to have to say, oh, and then this tiny little piece, we don't collect the taxes on that. Yeah. Yes, we don't own the property. I think we've used the word annexation and cede. Probably not correct, because I'm not exactly sure what the exact term is that we would be doing. Yeah. But we would basically be saying, okay, we want to remove ourselves as the school district taxing entity of this piece of property, and then allow Granite to do it, as Mill Creek is generally in their boundaries.
And that's just a recommendation, but there's no legal or requirement for us to do any of that. It's just something that will make us just kind of make things easy for kind of relationships and PR kind of right ways. Okay, cool. That's good to know. Yeah, I think it'll be good to have it next time, or as a discussion, because I'm still torn. I don't like for 40,000, you said?
40,000.
40,000, and it's not this. It's not dedicated to a specific thing. It's just the 40,000 that goes to our budget, and then we saw the budget kind of goes. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So have you asked them what they'll trade us for, Alan? Like, a
No.
couple of buses, taking the administrators out to lunch for the,
We have not negotiated with Granite as of yet.
5
wondering.
buses.
Other feedback, it will come back for a decision at the next time. So if you've got questions about it or other feedback that you'd like to provide, we can do that in the next meeting. I'll share my thought is that I'd like to keep it and continue collecting the revenue. It's not a lot of money, but it is money. But it's something I'll continue thinking about. So I appreciate the recommendation. Other thoughts?
And if we do choose to keep it, then, Mill Creek will want to come in and do their presentation of their CRDA, and we have our new policy to follow, so we would make sure we follow that, and that would be presented for board recommendation as well.
Okay. So be thinking about that, board members. Go ahead, Nate.
I just have a question, Alan. Do you know if this was just an oversight on behalf of the city of Salt Lake City Corporation and Mill Creek to not include the school district at the time when this property shift changed relative to the Salt Lake City boundaries? Because I know this has been a topic of discussion for probably 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere in there, and where we might have been left out of the discussion, or was it just kind of an afterthought or an oversight?
Yeah, where there was an oversight, or that's not their problem, so they didn't. Whether we keep it as the taxing entity or Granite, that's not their issue. Okay. And maybe we just missed out on knowing about it and thinking, hey, if they annex this into Mill Creek, then that does affect us.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just to follow up, I'm also a little bit torn and would like to think about it when we make a decision about it at our next meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. We'll move to the next item on our discussion agenda, which is the 2021-2022 school land trust plans. Maybe we can invite our interim executive director of school leadership and performance, Ms. Pittum, to come to the table. Board members, you were given a process this year. It was all electronic to review. We each had a list of schools to review, so that 2 board members reviewed every plan. We had a checklist of things we were looking at to make sure those plans were in compliance with the land trust guidelines. We had an opportunity to provide that feedback to school leadership and performance. I'm hopeful that everybody took advantage of that and had an opportunity to review those plans. And now it's our opportunity to discuss those plans. And I'll set the expectation right now that we are looking for these plans to be approved. So we're looking to move this to action tonight to approve the 2021-2022 land trust plans. Is there something you would like to add to that, Superintendent or Ms. Pittum?
Just add that a lot of work goes into those plans, and before they ever reach you, they've been through SICs, they've been through SCCs, they've been through our own hands and as network directors, and we just appreciate you taking the time to go over them, to give us feedback. That's how our schools learn. That's how we all get better. So thanks for doing that, taking the time to read them, and we're ready to get those off the ground.
Thank you. I'll provide my feedback right now. It was a pleasure to read the plans. It was a pleasure to see the work that had gone into them. Lots of careful consideration and very creative ideas. I loved seeing that. I liked the process this year. I appreciated the way you set it up digitally with a folder for us to check, and I had the checklist side by side and was able to then just quickly add my feedback. So I appreciated that process. I feel like the schools that I attend the SCCs on, I'm very familiar with the land trust plans, and it's fun to see those in writing, but there's also a lot that I learned from reviewing plans whose SCCs I don't attend, and so I appreciated the mix. And I am in support of approving the land trust plans. Anybody else want to add to the discussion? Wally?
Yeah, so yeah, it was also a great experience. I was on vacation when I was getting all these emails, and someone called me, and I was like, I'll guess I'll answer it. And then they were like, you need to approve these. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll do this on the airplane, flying back. But it was good. I had a couple of hours to do it, so I did it on the plane. There was just three of them that I hope there were updated, because they were like, at least one of them had an error. It was like the goals were for the wrong year, or at least I don't know if it was a typo. I don't know if you saw my notes, my feedback that I gave there. And then the other one was like they did go over the negative carryover or whatever, and so stuff like that. So I hope those were fixed so that we can approve them, right?
And we'll double check and make sure that absolutely everything is clear based on any input that we get.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So those, I put them in the notes. Did you want me to say them out loud, or do you have to?
Nope, I can go in and make sure.
Okay, you got the notes. Okay, so you can see the schools I had, and they're in red. I even highlighted in red. I was like, ooh. And then just another one was just just the feedback of just like the word tracker, and just that triggers me a lot. Like I didn't know what it meant, and they were talking about ESL, and I just put on my notes. I was like, I did a whole film documentary when I was 15 about the trackers that didn't allow me, because I was in ESL, to take honor classes. So I was just like, I don't know what that word tracker, what the tracker means for ESL in that school, but that was just, I highlighted it on there and stuff. So
Tell me to answer that.
Sure. Yeah.
In most of our schools that have trackers, and I can see how that could have a negative connotation in some ways. We work on that word, get a new one. Those individuals monitor students, become mentors to them, watch their work back and forth with them.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that makes sense, because I just saw the word tracker, and it was connected to ESL, and I was like, I have a whole film on this.
Oh, thank you. That's really good input. We'll share that.
So, but yeah, yeah. So that's just my feedback for that. But yeah, the rest of it was great. Like I said, I loved seeing it. Yeah, I have a lot of schools in my precinct, so they're all in my precinct, and I try to attend all the SCCs, but it's impossible for me to do that when I have 6 elementary schools.
Yes.
That's just elementary schools in my precinct. But yeah, thank you.
Nate?
Thank you. So I did everything wrong and handed in physical copies, so you guys get those. So yeah, the worst millennial still. But nonetheless, I was very pleased with all of the plans. I think there was only one that I had a question mark about that I'm happy to chat with you offline about. But it was just a minor, adjustment relative to looking at, a measurable, baseline starting point and then an ending point. But nonetheless, I was very impressed with a couple of the schools, especially Nibley Park and West. I thought they had really great plans put together. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But otherwise, I'm happy to support and move these forward to action and approve the plans tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other discussion?
I really appreciate the process of going through the plans in SCCs. We did our SCC training on this in the middle of some of those plans, and I will say that it's pretty clear that one of my schools does not follow the right process. And unfortunately, when I tried to bring that up in a meeting, the principal was not interested in hearing that. And so I am reluctant to pull that plan. But it's pretty, but it does, as we are instructed as school board members to oversee, it's very clear that doesn't happen. And I also feel as though it is not clear where the money is being spent. And that would be the West plan, actually. So that makes me concerned to approve that plan. Like I said, I asked some questions at the board meeting that I was at. And the administrator was not interested in answering those questions at the time. So those are things that make me concerned. It's not a goal setting and then a SEC choosing. It is a presented plan to the SEC, which is not the way it's supposed to work by the administrator. And I also feel like it's sort of a shell game in terms of monies. for that plan. It turns out that I think the monies are generated by another source, and so the monies end up being shifted so they can be spent in certain ways. So I have a question about that plan. The other schools did a great job. They had clear processes. They set goals. They discussed it with the administrator. The administrator followed the lead of the SEC, because the SEC should be directing that money towards school and student improvement. And so that was a question that I had. And I also feel as though some of those things are less measurable that West has. So I don't know whether that means that we say to West, your plan needs to be more careful. You need to go through the process more carefully, or if we pull it and ask them to make some revisions. But those are some questions that I have. Unfortunately, I was attending a family funeral at the last SEC meeting, and I wasn't there, but I did ask for a report from a couple people, and things didn't change dramatically. So that's what I would say. The other thing I would say, and I don't blame people for this at all, but I think that it would be really great if we could get at least a week to look at these plans.
Yep.
2.5 days was not enough for me.
Yep.
Those 2.5 days happen to be really hard in terms of my personal schedule. So I don't blame the network directors at all. They were doing a lot of things this year. But I think that we need to make sure the schools are getting them to you in time. But I just think we need more than 2.5 days to be able to do a responsible job.
Thank you. Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
A couple of things. One being, thank you for being understanding about that this year. The site has been down at the land trust, and so we were waiting for that to come back up. Then it came back up, and people were trying to get their plans in. And so one of the things, I don't know if you noticed in the email that I sent you, I said for sure next year we're going to make sure you have more time. We absolutely will do that. So thank you. And I did want to make one other point, is that in the last couple of years you've given us input about how we needed to spend time making sure that our principals really were making SMART goals, measurable goals, and that they were being clear in action steps. I'm hoping that for the most part you've seen more of that this year. We really worked hard on that this year, and feel like our principals had made progress with that. So another point that we wanted to make.
I guess just to follow up really quickly, I know my time is mostly up, but what I would say is that it was really interesting because we had a SEC meeting, then we had that training.
Yes.
That was required board training, and it was really clear that it was not going the way it was supposed to go. So I mean, it was not complying with land trust.
Thank you.
All right. Any other feedback from board members?
Just real quick, I didn't have West, even though it's in my precinct, because they had it, and I didn't have it in my, so I couldn't see it, but I really did want to see it. So that was just my general feedback. I would have loved to have seen West's.
I think you actually have access. If you go back to the files that I sent you last week, the first files, up at the very top, it'll say land trust plans, and I gave you a copy of every plan. Yeah, I want to make sure you could all, so that you could see everyone's. I'll send them again to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
also attached to the agenda tonight.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks,
We'll make sure you
Lily.
get them.
Other comments from board members about the plans that you reviewed?
If
Okay, go ahead.
do my last follow-up, just to your comment, Ms. Pittum, about the measurable and SMART goals. I did see that in the plans that I looked at, even in the number of plans that I looked at that weren't on my list. So I do appreciate that effort from our administrators and from your team, and Larry is our superintendent. So
Thank you.
very noted.
All right, I would like to entertain a motion to move the land trust plans to action.
I move to. We're all looking at you.
You don't have to do it.
No, I can do it. I move to move the discussion item 6, which is a 2021-2022 school land trust plans to action.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to move the land trust plans to action by Hoeli and seconded by Mohammed. Any discussion to moving these plans to action? All right, we're going 7-1 this time.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Nate, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Forgot your
Well,
name.
yes.
Getting late. Okay, those, the land trust plans are now moved to action. We'll go ahead and take action on them now.
So I move to approve all of the 2021-2022 school land trust plans.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Hoel Lee and second by Mohammed to approve the 2021-2022 school land trust plans. Any discussion to the motion?
I would vote yes with the caution to us that the plan needs to be driven by the SEC, not the school administrator, and that the use of the monies must be transparent and measurable.
Give that feedback. I mean, we've all had an opportunity to provide feedback on specific
Right.
plans, so that's your feedback, and I think that that's great. So give them that feedback.
I mean, usually my feedback is, you know, like the kind of feedback that Hoeli was saying, but
Mhm.
this is substantial. That's
Mhm.
why I'm bringing it up in an
That's
open
great.
meeting.
Thank you. All right, so any other discussion to the motion? All right, this time we'll do the three, starting with Catherine at 3, and we'll go back around, ending with Jenny.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Is that me now? Christy Sweat, yes.
Huele, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Okay, land trust plans are approved. Moving to the next item is our action agenda, and the only item on our action agenda is the appointment of our 2021-2022 student board member, Yadira Garcia from Horizonte. Attached to the agenda, action agenda, is a letter from the administrative team at Horizonte with their recommendation and the process that they've gone through to recommend our new student board member. I will entertain a motion on this.
I move that we move the student board member from discussion to action.
It's actually
Oh, yeah,
on
on action.
action.
Oh, it was on action,
So-
sorry. I move that we appoint, let me find the right, sorry.
Yadira Garcia.
Yadira Garcia as our student board member for 2022-2023, with many thanks to our current student board member, and with the request that she take an active mentoring role, and also with a reminder of the board that we'll start our new process immediately for appointing a board and a council.
So we have a motion to.
Can we just
and a
clarify that
second.
motion?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
2021,
22.
22.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
2021-22.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what I was
Thank
So-
gonna say.
Thank you. We have a motion that we appoint Yadira Garcia as our student board member for 2021-2022. Motion by Catherine and seconded by Christy. Any discussion to the motion?
I just had a question. I couldn't tell what grade.
She's a 10th grade.
She's going to go into 11?
Mhm.
Okay, and her pronouns are she. Okay, cool. So, okay, cool.
She'll be a
She'll be a
junior.
junior.
Cool, so it's just like you.
Mhm.
Cool.
I support the motion, but I would also support not amended language to the motion, but the spirit that Board Member Kennedy added. A thank you to our current student board member. It's lovely to have you here in person and to be with you, and a mentorship role. I also would love to see that and support that, because I think you've done a great job, and it's nice to have you in our system still, so that you can, you're here, you're not off to college yet. You can still participate and help and support. Any other discussion to the motion?
You can still bug us.
Still bug us, please. Yes, into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to say thank you. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm really happy to have been here, and Yadira, if you're looking for a job, you can work with me on the bill because next year we're going to get kids to vote. So you've got a job right there. And I'm incredibly happy for all the students that I had the grace of representing this year. And I would love to mentor you if you'd like to have me and to help establish the youth council program for the school district. But thank you very much for the privilege of your time this entire year.
Thank you. And we're going to keep you for 3 more meetings. So thank you so much.
And if I may just,
yes, please.
The reason you're crying is because you're very passionate. And because it is so amazing that every decision that you have guided us into making is because you bring the prospect. You actually place us in the right spot and reminds us that we are here working for students. And I don't know what to tell you. You've done amazing job, period. And I just, really, you've done an amazing job. And it's been an honor, to have known you for a short period of time and finally seeing you face to face. And hopefully soon without a mask, But I'm so proud of you for everything you're doing. Very, very proud of you. It takes tenacity, courage, and passion to run for this position and bring things you have made. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Any other discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. The motion is that we approve the appointment of Yadira Garcia from Horizonte as our student board member for 2021-2022. We'll go ahead and vote, this time just around the table, starting with Christy.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Jorge, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Okay. Well, welcome for the 2021-2022 school year to Yadira Garcia. Okay, now we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is the board member report, if needed. And we'll go ahead and we'll just do this one through 7. Or if you don't have one, go ahead. So, opportunity to give a board member report.
The only thing I would say that happened, well, there's a lot that happened since last meeting, but the biggest highlight for me in terms of my report is, and these are 5 minutes, so let me make sure. The timer, sorry. I got to meet with Dr. Gatson in person. That was amazing. And I learned a lot from him, and it just made me more excited about the future of our district and the visions the community I'm representing can become a reality through his leadership and through all the leadership of everybody in the district that wants to move, collectively to what we need, right? So that's the only kind of main report is we're kind of winding it down this school year. All the students, I was just asking, you about the test, right? And test season is starting, and so good luck with all the students taking tests. And then graduation's coming up, in a month, right? And so all the students in our school district are doing great, and I'm excited for them, and I'll be at the graduations, and just pushing forward, and our employees too. It's been a ridiculous year, and I think this year we're going to be able to end, and every single person is looking forward for the summer. And I think just the biggest thing we should see with our employees and our teachers is that they do take a vacation, right? I really want to see people take vacations this summer. That's all I have in my report.
Thank you, Joelle. Jenny, do you have anything you'd like to report?
No, just want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone. This little community that we have and the communities that we represent this school year has turned out to be not so bad, despite what we've gone through. I feel like we're on the up. And Dottie, my kids are bothered that I talk about you a lot and how cool you are, and they're like just rolling their eyes. But I hope and I'm grateful for our future because of you and what I see in our children in the Salt Lake City School District. And I would like to echo what board member Organista said. Like, man, I'm pretty stoked about what's about to happen and take place in this school district, and I'm excited to be part of it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Catherine, did you have something you want to report?
I'm just excited that Dr. Jill Biden will be visiting our district tomorrow. I think that's really great news. I'm really pleased that we're able to host her and show her some of our wonderful students and our wonderful schools. I also wanted to say that it was wonderful to meet Dr. Gatson, and also really say thank you to Alan, to this manager Kersley, for the time that he spent, because I think he did a lot of those meetings one-on-one because of our individual schedules, so that was a lot of time, and I appreciated the time that he spent with me and other people. So thank you, and just tell Superintendent Madden that it's been a great year, and I wish it'd been a smoother year for him. But we had a conversation in the hallway, and I think I should have said that to you more clearly, that I really appreciate that you've been here, and I think that you've made a lot of things work well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nate?
Yeah, just an echo of thanks, to our board, to our community. This is actually our first in-person meeting, technically, even though some of us have been meeting here physically. But it's been well over a year, I think, that we've been meeting virtually and in person with the versus in person with all the uncertainty with the pandemic. And just want to give a shout out to all of our administrators and the cabinet folks and my colleagues around the table that are here tonight, and previously who served with us. I felt like tonight was a good benchmark of success. Kind of feeling like things are getting back to what they were like, prior to March of last year. So a huge shout out to all my schools, to all the folks that worked on the agenda items tonight. And Dottie, I still have your I dissent sign, so you need to let me know when you're ready for that. Thank you for all your work too, Dottie.
Thank you, Nate. Mohammed?
What a year. My goodness, we will all work tirelessly climbing that mountain. Our knees were bleeding, hands were bleeding, but nevertheless we continued to push and help and support each other. And all of this would not have happened if it was not as well for the support of our families and support of our communities, and also a support of our children. They keep smiling regardless of the challenges we are facing. And so, at this time here, we are in right now Appreciation Month for teachers. And I just want to take this minute here to thank every single teacher, wherever you may be in the world, for everything that you have been doing and you are doing and you will continue to do. All of us out here are sitting here today because of some amazing teachers we have had in our lives. And I just want to say thank you for your patience, thank you for your courage, and thank you for your passion as well, and your love for our children. Yes, thank you. And also I want to thank every school board member here for your support to our teachers. And also the staff out there. I want to thank every one of you out there as well for your support to our teachers. They are the engine of the future of this country. And I'm so pleased and blessed to be in this country and be able to support, teachers that are teaching my kids. And it's thank you, teachers. You rock.
Well, amen to that. Thanks, Mohammed. Christy, did you have a report you wanted to give? Okay, thank you. We do have an update from our business administrator following our written agreement. It's a public update on our negotiation process. Business administrator.
Public update for negotiations goes as follows. The negotiations teams exchange bargaining topics and rationales for the proposals, along with sharing mutual items and proposed housekeeping items. Also, the Salt Lake City School District and Salt Lake Education Association negotiation teams continued their discussion around financial considerations for the 2021-22 cost of living adjustment and other proposals that carried a financial impact. The negotiation teams continue to meet regularly and will provide progress updates as negotiations continue.
Thank you for that update. Superintendent, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do. Yeah, I just, and it's kind of an echo on what so many people have said. I know a lot of you had a chance to meet with Dr. Gadsden last week for a little bit of time, and I had a chance to spend a lot of time with Dr. Gadsden last week, and we went around to a lot of schools, met a lot of administrators, met some teachers. We'll do some more next week, but I just want to say that I think he is absolutely wonderful, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job for this district. I'm just, the more I'm around him, the more impressed I am with him. He's smart, he's thoughtful, he's forward thinking, he's open, and I think he's just going to be absolutely wonderful. So I really look forward to the future of the district.
Thank you, Superintendent. I will just echo my gratitude for the work that all of you are doing. I'm grateful to be here in person. I'm grateful to the cabinet members who are sitting here in person. Thank you for being here. I look forward with great optimism to the work that we're doing, and I'm great and thankful to the superintendent for all that you've done and leading us through this year. You're not done yet. We're gonna work you till June 30th for sure. But thank you for that. And we've gotten through a lot on our agenda tonight, and I appreciate the thoughtful process from everybody and would like to call this meeting adjourned.